Martin, do you think there's too much stupid equity around?
I think I wouldn't call it stupid. I would say for certain types of assets, it's become extremely competitive. And I think, going back to the very early part of the discussion we had this morning about what is infrastructure, I think there's a sort of a view out there that infrastructure is actually the same as bonds. So it's pretty low risk, and also that infrastructure is the same as PFI. And it's not actually the same as either of those. It sort of has some similar characteristics, but not the same. And actually, to manage an infrastructure asset is quite intense, because your activities are always in the public scrutiny. So if you own Heathrow Airport and you mess up on Heathrow Airport, you're all over the front page. If you've got lots of people that you've got to manage, you've got huge capital programs you've got to manage, and it's quite. I step back and look at it, and I think it's quite surprising actually that people describe infrastructure as really simple stuff, simple. Zero risk, same as bonds, all that sort of stuff. And I just don't think it is. I think you can make some serious mistakes if you don't manage these assets properly,
but do you think
you just treat them like finance instruments.
Martin's got to build a tunnel underneath the River Thames that's got a bigger capacity than the Channel Tunnel. That's what Thames Water have got to do in the next. What's the time?
It'll be a £2.5 billion project that will run. Hopefully, will run the entire length of the Thames from Beckton sewage treatment work right away nearly up to Teddington, and that's required as part of an EU directive. The project, there's probably 3 separate projects. One that will take sewage along the Lee into the Beckton, and then another one along the river, and then the other one is the expansion of the Beckton sewage treatment works. And those are massive capital projects. And anyone who sits there and says, well, these projects are really low risk and it's exactly the same as investing in a bond is frankly deluding themselves. And you look around the infrastructure space, and infrastructure is not simple, straightforward, simple risk. And the idea that you can just lever it up and you'll end up just getting the same equity return or promise the same equity return is bizarre. As you lever it up, the equity return should go up. Simple rule 101, basically.
One thing you've got there is an aggregation problem, which is so talking about that one investment, but if that was the only investment going on in the UK economy, but at the same time you're going to be competing resources for the Olympics, possibly Crossrail, Thames Gateway, possibly, so a number of projects all happening simultaneously, asking a lot of the time for similar contractors, similar subcontractors and resource, with inevitable and unpredictable inflationary consequences. So again, to think it's risk-free to do all this building and that you can do it in an island without thinking of other projects is just not on.
Can I just pick up, it's important because I wanted, if I may, just pick up one comment, which was infrastructure is different from PFI. I think it's important to understand just very quickly what PFI is. PFI is a procurement methodology, that's all it is. So when government decides it wants to deliver some infrastructure, whether it's a hospital or a school or a Crossrail or the Olympics, it then has to decide what is the right procurement methodology to deliver that infrastructure. And back to your comment earlier about it should be about value for money and efficiency, I don't think you would find many people disagree with that. And PFI is just one tool that government would choose to use in delivering that infrastructure. So it really, I think it's viewed in many ways. Actually, all it is a procurement methodology which government will decide whether that is the right value for money solution to deliver a given piece of infrastructure. And exactly as you say, it has very, very different characteristics from a regulated utility where the regulator plays a very different role. So there are many different ways of delivering that infrastructure, and PFI is just one of them.
And the really interesting thing about PFI, as I understand it, is that quite often the government is sitting behind a guarantee with respect to the financing, with respect to the funding of it. If you look at the London Underground projects, you've got the government sitting there supporting 95% of the debt on those projects. So that in itself makes the lending lower risk as far as the investor's concerned.
It is unusual for government to provide a guarantee of finance. The London Underground deal was, one deal where government did stand behind the obligations of the debt, but that is a very unusual feature. And if you look at deals done over the last several years, it is almost, very much the exception where government will guarantee any of the debt.